You are listening to the IFH Podcast Network. For more amazing filmmaking and screenwriting podcasts, just go to ifhpodcastnetwork.com.
Just a heads up, this episode is brought to you by the Script Summit Screenplay Contest, where you can win a cash prize or even a contract with a Hollywood talent manager. All you have to do is visit scriptsummit.com for more info. All right, welcome to the Successful Screenwriter Podcast. On this episode, I am joined by a guest host as we analyze and break down a film to discover what works and what doesn't. All right, welcome to the podcast. We are doing a film analysis of Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I am here with Reece Taylor, option screenwriter, reporter at the Oakland Press, and contributor on the Successful Screenwriter blog. Reece, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Oh, man, this is going to be fun. All right, so I got to tell you, I really like this one. Give me your quick first thoughts.
First thoughts going into it because I literally saw this right after I saw the first Venom movie. Yeah. And I absolutely loved it. Fun pacing, used a lot of its setting well, loved it.
All right, I'm going to hit you with the logline. You ready?
Sure.
Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Eddie Brock attempts to reignite his career by interviewing serial killer Cletus Kasady, who becomes the host of the symbiote Carnage and escapes prison after a failed execution. All right, so we're going to have lots of spoilers because we both watched it. That's the hint of the show. We are doing an analysis. So if you haven't seen it yet, maybe watch the movie and come back. The writers on this were Kelly Marcel. Tom Hardy got a story by credit. And I thought that was pretty awesome. And the director was Andy Serkis. How cool is that?
You know, I just now realized that Andy Serkis directed it. He did a great job.
I know. I thought he did really good considering, you know, he's got a mocap and acting background, and here he does the sequel to Venom. Now, what I thought was really cool about this iteration of Venom is they took what made the very first version of this film interesting and unique, and they just dialed it to 11. I mean, that's one thing that I really noticed.
And that's one of the big things with the Venom character. And it's actually one of the reasons why, when I first got started into Spider-Man, when I was reading the comics,
I
started off with Venom.
Oh,
and
really?
And to see how he went from a villain to more of an anti-hero, I'd say. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great way to lead into this movie as well as the first one, because first one was just about how they were symbiotic and how really you had two different mindsets. Yeah. And by the end of the first one, it looked like the two of them were starting to gel. Then to see them kind of fight back and forth over control, essentially it was over control.
It was. But the control was definitely one of the sub themes, but I think the main theme of this story was relationships. This was a relationship film. I mean, they took Venom and Eddie as basically a dysfunctional relationship that in the midpoint of the film, they literally break up. I thought that was hilarious and beautiful at the same time.
And that fight was everything. Throwing TVs out of the the apartment.
Venom was a scorned lover, essentially, that was just like super toxic, obviously, because he's a parasite. And he's throwing stuff, and then he's like, you never appreciated me, you've never respected me. He leaves, and then he has a night out on the town, ends up at a rave where he's essentially like coming out in a way. It was crazy, and people were loving him, celebrating him, and he goes through all of this, realizes that no one is a perfect match for him except for Eddie. Go ahead.
And what I love with that is exactly what you were saying, because he went through all of that rave. He had so much fun, and he said, I just wish you were here to see it.
Eddie. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's crazy. So I thought, what a really cool way of exploring this relationship, because this type of a film, you would expect it to just be dark, that the Venom would be this evil creature in his mind, and that would be the traditional way you would write this in a thrillery body horror-esque sort of way. And instead they lean on the relationship between the two of them. They lean how each other need them. They show how it can be toxic, and then they show growth of the characters. I thought it was beautiful. especially towards the end of the film when they're coming back together and Venom is attached to his ex-wife and Eddie has to basically beg for forgiveness, but Venom is still kind of he's still kind of wounded and can't take him back.
Now, another thing I want to mention when it comes to the relationship aspect of it is that, oddly enough, they portrayed one of the more realistic relationships actually in film.
Yeah.
Anybody who's ever been married or in a relationship understands it's never going to be just the beautiful honeymoon aspect of it.
No.
People tend to miss out on the fights that you have behind the scenes when you're alone in your house, you're arguing over something. That's what happens. And if you look on the flip side of that with Carnage, and she was played by Naomi Harris.
Cletus Kasady by Woody Harrelson.
And I'm trying to remember I have it in my notes, one sec.
Oh, the wife? Shriek. Yeah.
And how we see what's essentially the honeymoon aspect. Everybody sees, oh my God, he got our dream car. He's going through the city. He's destroying everything just to get to her.
Yeah.
And then when they get to that wedding aspect, they're not symbiotic.
No,
and neither is Cletus or Carnage.
Yeah, it's about control. It's about power in the relationship. So I thought that was really good. I thought it was really good to show the different aspect there. You know, when you're working with a theme of a relationship like that and then of control, it's really important to show the opposite of that. And they did in the antagonist subplot, essentially. I thought it was really good, showing the competition between Cletus, Carnage, and Shriek. And I thought it was amazing. Now, Woody Harrelson, of course, is great. And it was great seeing him play Carnage. It kind of felt a little bit like Natural Born Killers to me, like he was bringing in that kind of serial killer with charm-ish aspect. What I did think was good, it's easy to take a character like that, a serial killer, and then just make him evil and unrelatable. But instead, they really did pepper in this romance with Shriek, how much he loves her. They tried to pepper in the fact that he was abused, but more than likely that's excuses he used because he's just a killer. But I did really enjoy the fact that him and his symbiote are so different, and that they were essentially all battling with each other at the same time of trying to stop Venom.
In a lot of ways, that reminds me of, I'm going to pull something from real life with what you were saying a moment ago with him being abused. And I'm old enough to remember the Menendez brothers case.
Sure.
Where that became, I'm not going to say the term, and I use this not as my own, but more as what's colloquially known as the abuse excuse.
Right.
And you see how somebody who went through that tends to try to blame everybody else tries to blame somebody else for an action that they caused.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's every case, but then I go over to Carnage and Cletus Kasady. Cletus is somebody who was essentially trying to be, he even said in the film, he wanted to be loved. Like, he wanted that friendship. That's why he reached out to Eddie Brock.
Right.
And then he realized that Shriek was still alive. Yeah. And that's where a lot of that relationship aspect came. Right.
He wanted acceptance, he wanted love, but he also wanted fame. He wanted that kind of love that celebrities have, right? And a lot of serial killers, and a lot of serial killers want that as well. And you see it with some of the older popular cases. You know, they love the celebrity status that they get. One of the really cool things I saw visually, subtext wise, and they snuck this in there, you know, other than his crazy serial killer wall that he had, he's writing that letter to Eddie, which you think it might be in blood. He's writing the letter, and then a spider crawls along, right? And he smashes the spider. And obviously, what is this a hint towards, right? This is a hint towards Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was great. Like, they had little visual subtexts like that in there. I thought were really cool. All in all, I really did enjoy this story. The characters, they get more depth. We get to see more about who they are. One thing I found with Eddie, compared to the comic books, in the comic books, he is an investigative reporter in the traditional sense, right? He's really getting out there. He's really getting things done. In this setting, he is an investigative reporter, but not in that way. It's more of a God, I want to say he's more of like a grifter almost. He's not the type of guy that you're used to seeing. So he leans more on Venom in the story than he does in the comic books for that type of thing. And I think they did that as a way to really help sell Venom as more of a hero and less of a guy that a creature that just needs to eat brains.
Well, I remember and this is going back into the comics itself, and I always try to separate the comics from the actual, what's the best way to put this? I always try to separate the comics from the films themselves.
Right.
And one of the best ways to do it is, as you mentioned, the thing is with Eddie and Venom as a character, in the comics, he was always a bit more brutish.
Right.
Even Eddie as a guy, he was one of the biggest jocks you can imagine.
Yeah, he was a big dude. And Tom Hardy's no slouch. So.
Oh no. I mean, he's Bane.
Yeah.
I'm always going to see him as Bane.
Yeah, exactly.
But with Venom, again, as you say, he's kind of a grifter. He's kind of one of those guys who you're not phony when you see it.
He's a little sleazy. He's a little sleazy. Yeah. We can admit it. Yeah, definitely. So there's definitely a difference in canon there between the films and the comic book.
And I think that has to be to a strength, because again, you want to separate characters from one universe and the other.
Yeah.
Which also leads into what's going to happen with the next universe.
Oh, I love that. I was so excited.
And I mean, it's so cool to actually finally see Venom be Venom in a film.
Yeah.
And he's going after Spider-Man in the upcoming movie. Spoiler alert, everybody.
Well,
I think I need to add that one again.
I don't know if maybe you know something I don't know, and I don't want to dive into it, but there is definitely a big hint there that the Venom is coming into the MCU. I was so excited about that because I just love Tom Hardy. He's such a great actor, and to see him take on the role of Eddie Brock in Venom, and the sheer fact that the guy goes method with it. I mean, he records all of the dialogue for Venom, and then when he's on set, they play it in his earpiece so that he's acting off of himself. I mean, it's just brilliant.
Here's the thing with Tom Hardy, who I think is actually an underrated actor, even going back to Bane and going back to
he was in Star Trek. He was in one of the Star Trek films. He played a young Picard. I mean, that's how far back he goes. I think it was called he was in Nemesis. Yeah.
Star Trek Nemesis.
I know. Is that crazy? Yeah, I mean, the guy's amazing. I'm really glad to see him do it. I thought Woody Harrelson brought it. I really did love, and Michelle Williams. I enjoyed the complexities of the relationship there. And it was just fresh. Do you have any highlights for me that you want to break down for the film?
One of the big highlights for me was the fights that they kept having, particularly over the chickens.
Oh my God.
He refused to kill the chickens because they had a relationship together.
Yeah, exactly. It was Sonny and Cher, right?
And it wasn't just brilliant, but it also played again into the theme of the film of relationships.
Exactly.
He refused to attack one of them because, I mean, also if you look at it, that's kind of
it is part of the theme, right? Relationships, and it's a way that they can show Venom is growing as a character, right? He wants to be the lethal protector, right? Which was a callback to Venom's very first solo issue back when I was young in high school. And if we were like, oh my God, you get the new, graphite lethal protector, limited edition Venom comic, so we were all excited about that. But yeah, it is growth because he has to have a particular chemical that's only found in chocolate and brains, which is a real thing. And I love that they did that. So by showing the fact that he won't kill the chickens is showing that Venom is growing as a character and working his way into the anti-hero like you had suggested.
And it's also a form of foreshadowing because if you look at it, he had to kill the two at the end. He had to kill the loving couple.
Oh man, that's such a great point, Reece. Absolutely some foreshadowing there as well. They had to take out that couple. I love it. I love the way that they played with Venom taking on Carnage and had to eat him right at the very end. So that was even more visual subtext because that's what Venom does. Venom eats. And I kept thinking, how's he going to kill this thing? Is he going to burn? No, he just ate it, which was crazy. All right. So This episode is actually brought to you by the Script Summit Screenplay Contest, which is up and open for submissions right now. Winners can win up to $1,000 in cash, and 2 of our winners this year will get represented by talent managers. How cool is that, Reece?
That's absolutely amazing. I've entered before, and it's what helped put me on the map.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Absolutely
Very good.
Love Script Summit.
Script Summit, man. All right. So we will do another one of these in about a week. And Reece, I really wanted to thank you for being on the show.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate being here, Jeff.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share in your social media where you can tag us at The Successful Screenwriter.